Hello, and welcome to HESSA's Promote a Positive Mental Health in the Workplace. I'm Dr. Kari Ellingson, Associate Vice President Emeritus for Student Affairs at the University of Utah, and I'm also a psychologist. I serve as the lead for the mental health focal area of the HESSA project. And as many of you know, HESSA, or Higher Education System Strengthening Activity, is a 5-year grant funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development in cooperation with Pakistan's Higher Education Commission. The ultimate goal of this grant is to improve the marketability and employability of Pakistan's university graduates, as well as increase the connections between the universities and academia and industry. 16 Pakistan public universities were selected initially to be part of this project, and the HESSA team has been working closely with representatives across a wide variety of disciplines from these universities to bring and to share amongst each other best practices for leadership, for research, for teaching, and in my area, support services. I've had the pleasure to work with a group of 16 representatives from these universities over the past year and a half who represent the mental health area. And I have to tell you that it's been a long time since I've worked with such a talented, professional, really a dedicated group of individuals. And I get inspired constantly by the changes they have made on their campuses and that they hope to make in the future with the collaboration of their colleagues. Last October, we did a webinar on university student mental health, and now we're turning our attention to the workplace. I'll turn the time over to Ms. Ayesha Mujeeb, who's the clinical psychologist and general manager of the Counseling and Career Advisory at the National University of Sciences and Technology, or NUST. Ayesha?
Thank you so much, Kari, and assalamu alaikum, and good evening to all the participants who have joined us from different parts of Pakistan, and assalamu alaikum and good morning to people who are attending from US. So today's topic of the webinar is promoting positive mental health at the workplace. So being a clinical psychologist, a mental health practitioner, and a working woman, and the head of a counseling center, this topic is really very close to my heart because creating a mentally healthy workplace, work environment is very crucial for the well-being and productivity of the employees. So today we have 3 panelists, and I will introduce the panelists first. So our first panelist is Dr. William Hight, also known as Bill Hight. He's a psychologist and a training coordinator at Augusta University. He's also an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry, Medical College of Georgia. And today is going to talk about connection between mental health and workplace. Our second panelist is Mr. Nabeel Ahmed. He is a lecturer in the Department of Psychology, Karakoram International University. And he is going to talk about factors that create a mentally healthy environment in the workplace for all. Our third panelist is Ms. Noureen Lehri. He is in Human Resource at Sardar Bahadur Khan Women University. And he is going to talk about promoting good mental health for university faculty and staff and how to promote mental health at campus. So we have about 10 minutes for each for all the participants. Once the guest speakers have given their presentation, then we'll have about 15 minutes of question answer sessions. You can share your or send your questions on this question answer chat box at the end of each presenter. Once all of them have given their presentation, then we'll be open for the question answer sessions. So I won't take long. So I will hand over to our first guest speaker, Dr. William. Over to you, Dr. William.
Great. Thank you very much. It was an honor to be asked to be part of this webinar today, and it's a real pleasure for me to be here as well. What I'd like to do is take a few minutes to talk with you about the complex but the very important relationship between mental health and the workplace. I think all of us who have ever been involved in work in any format know the stresses as well as the joys that can come from our work lives and our work environments. What I would like to do is help us reflect on that as a way of looking at the mental health opportunities that exist in workplaces in order to promote mental health opportunities throughout a region, a country, and globally. I'd like to start actually with a definition of mental health that's proposed by the World Health Organization, and it's one that I like a lot. It talks about mental health as being a state that enables people to cope with stresses of life, realize abilities, to learn well, to work well, and to make significant contributions to their communities. The component that I like most about this is that it really looks at mental health not just as being the absence of mental illness, but as something valuable in itself, something that is worth promoting, something that is worth looking at as a way to help people optimize their lives. And it also points out that everyone has a right to mental health. These are a couple of quotes from Dr. Sigmund Freud. In 2024, some of the things he said can seem outdated, but I think that he got it right on these things. And he said that love and work are the cornerstones of humanness, and that a psychologically healthy person is someone who is able to work and someone who is able to love. And I think the first sentiment on the next slide is something that really reiterates what Freud said in terms of that. And that is that decent work is good for mental health. Sort of the converse of that is that work that is not providing the kind of environment that's healthy can be a detriment to mental health. We know that poor working environments, and those can include things like inequities and discrimination, unreasonable expectations, lack of security in hiring, lack of security in continued employment can pose a risk to mental health. We know that about 15% of working adults have been estimated to have a mental disorder. That was in 2019, which is about the most recent stat I could get on that. But that's a significant number of people. In terms of the economic impact of mental health issues in the workplace, it's estimated that globally there have been 12 billion working days lost every year just to depression and anxiety, not including other mental health issues, just to depression and anxiety, which are very common. And the cost of that in dollars is estimated to be $1 trillion US, which is over 278 trillion Pakistani rupees per year in lost productivity. And we do know from past experience, from initiatives that have taken place in the past, that there are actions that can take place at work to promote the mental health of individuals and to support them, both in terms of optimizing the mental health they already have, but also in addressing mental health concerns that may exist for them. And we know also that in Pakistan, there has actually been some research that indicates that that is true. This study from Jan and Bashir and Irfan Naveed show that the psychological climate actually showed a significant impact on how employees in the banking industry performed and their overall sense of quality of life. I think that sort of calls for action, the need to do research in other areas of the workforce as well. That certainly points in the direction that that being an important factor. Another point that I want to bring up are some of the challenges that can exist in workplaces, things that influence mental health in the workplace that sometimes are issues to be overcome. The first of those is looking at work-related stressors. Those can be things like the long hours. And that, everyone knows that everyone works long hours, but there's a level at which those hours become an undue burden on people and really unrealistic. If people are worried about whether or not they're going to be able to provide housing and food for themselves and their families in the next week or the next month, that kind of job insecurity is a huge stressor. And if there is no support coming in the workplace from management, that not only doesn't take advantage of that opportunity, but actually can let bad situations become worse. The next point is looking at societal pressures that come into play. More broadly than just the workplace, in any country, in any region, there are certain stigmas that exist around mental health. And some of those come from people's personal histories. Some of those come from cultural norms, and those cultural norms may be in the areas of religion, they may be in the areas of gender, they could be in terms of family issues or ethnicity issues. But often what those do is they discourage people from seeking help because mental health is not seen as something that's can be addressed in a professional way. It's something that's handled often in a smaller group format, and we know that professional help can be very effective. And the next, we also know that there is a real need for increased mental health support services in many workplaces. The workplace is something that permeates society, and so it's a huge opportunity to implement strategies that can promote mental health within Pakistan. All right. If we look at the next slide, we're going to look at what some of the numbers are specific to Pakistan that talks about that need. From the most recent information we can find, the prevalence of depression and anxiety in Pakistan specifically is about 34%. And in past years, I've seen higher numbers than that. This next statistic is one that sort of made me sit back and take notice. And that is that the expenditure as a percentage of the total government health expenditure is 0.04%. Now, that's not 4%, it's 0.04%. And I think like all countries I'm aware of, Pakistan, certainly mental health advocates want to see more funding go in that direction. And then according to the 2020 World Health Organization Mental Health Atlas, there were in total 1,200 mental health workers in Pakistan. That's psychiatrists, mental health nurses, psychologists, social workers, which is actually down from previous years and equates to about 1 per 200,000 people, which makes finding resources very difficult for individuals on an individual level. And what that speaks to is something that supports the statement from the World Health Organization, which is that business as usual for mental health simply will not do, which is true, like I said before, globally. And the numbers for Pakistan say that it's also true. Typically, what business as usual has meant is making mental health a low priority, dealing with mental health issues only when they become a crisis and demand attention, which is called secondary and tertiary, second and third level interventions in the public health world. It's not cost effective, it's expensive, it doesn't work very well. And this statement from Batul and Hanif talks about something that I think is very important, which is primary prevention. A dire need to shift the focus towards mental health promotion strategies, being proactive in developing flourishing, productive workforces, and not just focusing on the mental illnesses and distress that come as a result of a lack of support in the first place. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the next presenter, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Bill. I thank you, all the HESSA team, for inviting me to this webinar. I feel privileged to be part of this platform to share whatever our experiences teach us. So today I'll be talking about mentally healthy and positive work environment for all and the augmenting factors. What are those factors which actually augment this whole, the concept of positive work environment? So what we have over here is, I will break it down into three parts of my presentation, into three basic parts. That first of all, we'll be talking about optimization of well-being and productivity, because we study in organizational psychology that if I am not dissatisfied with my job, it doesn't mean that I am satisfied with my job, because satisfaction is something that, a road farther away from dissatisfaction. So we'll be talking about something to be done other than bare minimum, as Bill said as well. So the second thing that I'll be talking about are the core factors that relate with the specificity of work plan and our work related obligations. And the third thing is that we'll be talking about is positive psychology and a healthy work environment. So starting with the optimization of well-being and productivity, there's a difference between optimization of well-being and the absence of ill-being. If I am not dissatisfied, it doesn't mean that I'm satisfied with whatever the conditions are. So we should not be talking about the bare minimum. We should be talking about our obligations, so that we can actually tread over the road that leads us farther away from ill-being, and that is what well-being is all about. So we should be focusing on the strengths of the individuals, so that we can harness those strengths and adopt a more proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. And this, I believe, that rests in the overall structure of our positivity through work standards. Because I believe that there are a lot of problems when it comes to human resource management in Pakistan, because we believe that human resource management is sort of a post office kind of job. There are job applications, they come and go, and you think that this whole criteria is enough to fulfill the role of a human resource management professional. But I believe that Kari, if you could turn over the slide. Yeah. So the most important thing, according to human resource management professionals and the psychologists, is that the first thing is ensuring the right person for the right job at the right time, with right access to right opportunities, with right appraisal. Because if you're not really focused on giving the right person the right job, that person will have a hard time focusing on whatever his or her duties are. And that is the whole crux of the human resource management goals, that you need to give the right person the right job. And in that way, that person would be, capable of optimizing his or her capabilities. And I would take the example of a birthday without a cake. Oftentimes, I would refer the cake as core essentialities, the job description that we have and the job specifications that are needed to complete the job, and the party poppers as the superficial and pretentious stuff. Oftentimes when we talk about workplace and, a healthy workplace, people tend to take it as something that resides in levities. That is a child's play. Okay, we can go, we can have some kind of games in our halls. Okay, we can somehow go on a first name basis, and that will do. But I don't think so that will suffice whatever is needed for a healthy workplace. The core essentialities being the job specifications, what are the knowledge, skills, abilities of the person, of the employee, and the job descriptions, that what that person needs to perform, they should match. Because I've seen that there is a lot of discrepancy between that. And because of that, not only that person suffers, the other person also suffers as well. That person who is on the consumer end. So yes, you can turn it. So there's this psychologist who gives this two-factor model, Hertzberg, that there are motivators and then there are hygiene factors. Satisfiers. The motivators are the satisfiers, the recognition, the achievement, the responsibility, advancement, personal growth, and all that stuff. And the hygiene factors, these are the dissatisfiers. If they are not there, a person would be dissatisfied. But if they are there, the person would not be dissatisfied, but not necessarily satisfied with the job. So when we talk about the goals of a manager, of a person who is responsible for his team, I think that these two factors are really important. And the first one being something that would lead to a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. Okay. So there are some of the studies in Pakistan that actually favor these motivators and hygiene factors, that these are some of the factors that should be looked into if we want to have a healthy workplace. Kari, if you could turn the slide. Okay, then I would like to talk about the positive psychology and a healthy work environment. Positive psychology often talks about, fostering and augmenting the strengths of a person. So I would take it into two different paradigms as well. First of all, I would talk about the person being responsible as, the employee being responsible for his or her own growth, and then the manager fostering that person, that he or she could actually foster and augment his or her growth as well. So when we are talking about at an employee level, it's really important that we should give, and the manager should be looking out to give certain responsibilities and certain opportunities to the employees so that they could actually foster their strengths, and actually they could augment their strengths. And we have seen that when we give, and there are studies that when we actually give the employees the space to grow, they actually start enjoying their work, and that leads to a very, very healthy, mentally healthy environment. So the second thing, what we can do is to adapt such organizational culture and environment that actually supports growth and inclusivity. So we should have an organizational culture that actually does not ostracizes people, that actually includes people, that gives them a healthy competition and a healthy communication. And I think that there is a very important role of leaders in this particular domain, because transformational leaders who are not actually just looking out to get the tasks done, rather than they are really looking out for the growth of those individuals that they are working with as a family, that obviously they don't need to be family, but they have to treat them as family, because that's what growth is all about. That's what mental health is all about. So I would also talk about the renewal of vows. There is this leader-member exchange model. There is a theory that talks about that what happens when leaders and members, the followers, they drift apart from each other. What happens that once there was this employee that was very fascinated by the idea of excelling in the organization and making the organization a very productive place. Now what happens is that employee is not so good, not so well spoken. So what happens that they have drifted apart? It's a word for the it's a lesson for the managers, that you sometimes have to renew that relationship, which somehow got disturbed because of so many other factors, so many extraneous variables. Sometimes it does happen that some very vocal individuals get into your inner circle, and you start putting so much effort in them, and you start thinking that those people who are not really well spoken in this group of yours are not very well capable. So they start to drift away from each other, and there goes the actual responsibility at this particular point lies on the leaders, that they should kind of renew the relationship that they have between each other, because that is going to be significant, because that is going to bring that person who thinks that he has been ostracized from this whole group, that person's mental health is prime importance, because that person soon will think that I'm no good. So I think to rejuvenate and to renew that relationship is very important, and that I believe is the crux of all what I believe is what could be done in a proactive approach to mental health in at workplace. Thank you.
Noureen?
Hello. Okay. Thank you, Kari. Thank you, Dr. Ayesha, Kari, and HESSA team for providing me this wonderful opportunity to get have an interaction with people on mental health issues facing a university by faculty members and staff. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm Noureen and working as Assistant Director at Sardar Bahadur Khan Women University. This is the only female women university in our province with the 9,000 enrolled students in our university. And because it is the only female university, so my entire mental health issues might be you'll feel that's a great domination of gender type of discussions, or might be the gender things are more highlighted in my presentation, because I am talking about the women of university, the entire staff and the female, and most of in our universities, even though those are not the women universities in Balochistan or Pakistan, might be facing the same difficulties and in their universities. But my one is a little bit focusing the women. Here I would like to share some university faculty staff mental related health. US university experiences a survey conducted in 2023 that the symptoms of depression observed the 29%, of anxiety 38%, 33% said that they are often or always physically exhausted. 38% said that they are emotionally exhausted, 40% said they are worn out. So studies from other countries are also, as Nabeel mentioned in his presentation, and other friends in previous webinar, that there are a number of studies who are talking about mental health, anxiety, and mental issues that are related that are different from country to country. So I would like to go forward. The contributing factors of mental health issues of faculty and staff. What are the fundamental counting factors or contributing factors that are, really disturbing or making a negative impact on mental health of human being? Excessive workload leading to burnout. Here I'm talking about the administrative roles of faculty, as it has been observed that most of the universities are, putting overload, workload and burdens on faculty members, particularly on admin staff as well, because there are some administrative roles of faculty members as well. So on one other, they are supposed to be good teachers in universities, but on other hand, they are very much busy in administrative roles as well. So this is one of the contributing factors. Poor pay, poor salaries. This is one of the major issues. Recently, might be few people who are from Pakistan may be aware of the economic crisis of universities from last few months. University staff and faculty member are going through with a great pain and mental health issues, as they are not getting their salaries from the university due to the financial crisis in country. Limited skill enhancement programs for faculty and staff, or professional development opportunities. Sometimes if a person is hired as a staff member or as a faculty member in any university, so they are doing their routine job. There are no refresher courses for them. This creates a little bit stress within that university. It creates a comfort zone as well. And then if the comfort zone is there, and after a few months, after a few years, then we are getting enrolled new faculty members or staff who are very energetic. So there's a big difference who are living in comfort zone and those who want to bring some, want to work on some good ideas. So there's a leg pulling thing in the work environment. It creates negativity in the workspace. The political influence in posting, transfers, and hirings in educational institutions. It has been observed that it is very obvious, and you will agree with me, that countries like Pakistan, there is a huge political and a very prominent, very visible political influence can be observed in posting, transfers, and hirings in education institutions. So this creates frustration in youth. This creates frustration within the university atmosphere and environment. Lack of supportive forces in the work environment, no teamwork, and demotivation. This leads to demotivation. The factors contributing to mental health, sometimes it has been observed that delays in promotions, whether we are talking about the staff members, administrative side, or the faculty members who are working in universities. So there are delays in promotions, gender obstacles and social pressures, which are often different for females, like domestic violence, harassment, gender roles, expectations. Gender obstacles like universities like our university or in Balochistan, it's a tribal society. So there are some gender stereotypes about women, whether they're studying, where they're working women. So this in itself, the gender obstacles, the gender issues in itself creates a negative impact on the mental health, and definitely it affects the entire atmosphere of university. Hierarchies and power structures of institutions, organizations, this sometimes create delays in decision makings, resolving the conflicts, resolving the problems, and this creates again anxiety. And sometimes a huge conflict emerges within the universities, might be it is between the teacher and students, sometimes it is between the staff members, between the faculty members, because when it's a conflict, it really requires quality time to take action against that conflict on time. Then the other contributing factor is competition with other faculty members, or the competition of a staff member with other staff member for promotions, for opportunities without realizing the relevance. See, if as a person is going for PhD program abroad, the other person who is not having the same degree or the same experience or the same eligibility, he or she is not meeting the same criteria. But when they are going with a negative competition within this university or with their staff members, so it creates automatically a negative atmosphere in institution. Same routine, same subject and teaching methods. This I personally observed within the faculty members, that semester system, the relationship with student is only the bookish relationship. The teaching method is the same. They are not getting the refresher courses. They are not changing their routine work. They are not changing their teaching methods even. So this creates stress also. Similarly, if we look into the factors, that responsibilities to respond to students' problems without suitable training. Sometimes if the student is a gender-based violence victim, if the faculty or the admin staff is not well trained on such issues, so they will tackle it in a very bad manner. And sometimes they victimize, the victim blaming is there for the students, because they have no idea that how to listen a victim of abuse, a victim of domestic violence, and they should be a good listener. So when they don't have these skills, this also creates a very, ad hoc situation, a very negative atmosphere within universities. Administrative and service duties without course load, workload, and without any, this I think earlier I mentioned that admin and faculty responsibilities must be rotatory basis. It should be changed. And due to the additional responsibilities and workload, it creates a mental stress definitely. Personal complicating factors, differences, like it is amongst the students, it is I'm talking about here faculty, admin, and every staff and every member who is affiliated with the university. If you look, what are these differences? These differences are rural to urban, class difference, caste difference, religious differences, ethnicity, cultural and social background differences. So these differences sometimes become a very mental level stress. It creates mental level stress for those persons, between two people, between two groups, because one is dominating and the other is victimized. So these differences should be tackled in a proper manner and should not be encouraged in universities. Nuclear families and child caring responsibilities. If the staff, the faculty members are working women especially, and they have children and they have nuclear families, but there is no backup special support within the work system, workplace, for those parents who are nuclear families. Lack of satisfactory daycare centers. Few of have in our universities the daycare centers, but these are not satisfactory places where they should be very satisfied and they should deliver their lectures and do their assignments in a very healthy, with a healthy mind. What are the potential impacts on faculty, staff, or students? Definitely such things, negativity like bullying, Negative competition that I talked about earlier. This creates anxiety. This creates depression, eating disorder, reducing quality of life, poor teaching or job performances, poor health conditions of that person, or negative behavior. Sometimes I have personally observed that those who are not assertive and they are under pressure, they become very aggressive at a time. Sometimes they become very violent. So they become very judgmental, and they become very dependable. The suicidal thoughts, it's also a question and a point of concern. Drug addiction, personal life and relationship difficulties. So these all are the potential impacts of lack of opportunities and lack of those things that I mentioned. This creates this all mess in society. What are the consequences for education institutions? Definitely, at the one hand, when it is affecting individuals negatively, the groups negatively, definitely, ultimately, the greater impact will be on the higher education institutions or the place where they are working. Campuses and students feel the burden when faculty mental health impairment impacts their teaching and research. Definitely, it will ultimately impact the studies of students. Talented faculty and staff leave the universities or higher education institutions. Might they will quit from the university, from the workplace. Might be they are very potential, but maybe we will be losing the talented people. Poor ranking of university. If the potential people leave the university, or the potential people are there but they are unable to perform with a positive mental health, and they are or the universities are unable to engage them in a with a positive mentality, so definitely their ranking will be in a very poor category. Loss of scholarships and other opportunities for that university due to poor performances of both side from students, staff or faculty members. Keeping in these issues in my mind, there are some suggestions for the improvement that Higher Education Commission and Ministry of Education must and should conduct a survey or a study of each university around the issue of mental health, focusing the staff member and the faculty members of that university. So only then we would be able to, once the issues will come, then we would be able to deal with them. Train all university staff and faculty members at the start of each semester on mental health. Because in our university now, it's a cross-cutting theme of our university, and we are celebrating the World Mental Health Day on a regular basis yearly, and we have the mental health policy as well. But still, there is a lot of work to do, and this is the opportunity where our university is, on board with HESSA team. But there are many universities who are unaware of mental health and the importance of mental health and its issues in their university. So once we will conduct number of trainings for the staff and faculty, then the things will be improved. Prioritize development of support services for faculty and staff. There should be a prioritized list of things that fulfills the support and requirements of faculty and staff according to their needs and issues, including a counseling center staffed by full-time professionals, counselors in a permanent physical space. Have a clear and consistent guidelines for assigning of administrative duties and promotions. So there will be no clash between the admin and faculty staff and within the staff for promotions, for resolving their issues on time. Train administration and department heads on recognizing at-risk faculty and staff and appropriate referrals. Available courses for faculty, particularly focusing these areas. These are very mandatory areas for faculty and admin staff to have the basic know-how and knowledge on these 3 to 4 thematic areas that are self-development and behavioral change, counseling skills, and for non-counseling staff as well, leadership skills, becoming a mentor, so they can create a positive atmosphere for each other and for students as well. So this is all from my side. I know due to time, I just cut it short, but I tried my level best to mention the gender, cultural, socio-economic, religious, and other all obstacles and issues that are related to our personal backgrounds and that are affecting the university or the workplace, and some recommendations for the improvement. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. William, Nabeel, and Noureen, for this enlightening presentation regarding the promotion of mental health. As shared in all of your presentation, mental health, a very positive environment is very important for a positive mental health. The workplace plays a very important role. As we know that being working people, most of our time is spent in our workplace. So if a workplace is positive and it has a positive environment, it can has positive impact on our mental health. Whereas if the workplace has a negative environment, it can have a negative impact on our mental health. So you also talked about different factors which affect our mental health, like Noureen and Dr. Bill talked about different factors. They can be long working hours, they can be a big stressor, or job insecurity and financial crunches, and there are power hierarchy, and then there are certain conflict issues which are not resolved. So all these factors can impact our mental health. So it is to promote positive mental health, it is very important that we play a proactive role towards having a positive mental health. Like Noureen shared that our educational institutions should have counseling centers, and yes, I totally agree with that. But at the same time, it's very important to raise awareness regarding mental health, so that even if there are counseling centers, at times because of the stigma and because of the other issues, people don't seek professional help for their mental health. So I think it's really very, very important that we train our faculty, we train them regarding different the mental health issues like anxiety, depression, like Bill shared, and Noureen also shared that anxiety and depression are at its peak. So it's very important that we train them regarding these issues and we raise awareness regarding these issues, so that our work environment is a better place where mental health is also positive. So we then move to question and answer sessions. So we have, let me look at the. Sorry.
Yeah, I can go ahead and ask one of them that came up.
Sure, please. I was having some.
Yeah, I could tell you great getting in. We have a question on how do you address conflict issues emerging from power dynamics at work? And that's open to anyone who wants to answer.
Kari, please repeat the question. I'm really sorry.
Oh, that's okay. How do you address conflict issues emerging from power dynamics at work? Anyone want to take that?
If I comment on this, if nobody else is commenting, sorry if I am, taking. Okay, so what I like to comment on this particular question is that, power dynamic and the conflict that arise due to power dynamics somehow are everywhere in every organization. And if there is no conflict and there is a lot of shift in power dynamics, it means that a lot of people are compromising on those fronts where they don't need to compromise. I think whenever a person who is probably at the lower end of the power hierarchy, that person will and often takes the heat whenever there is this power struggle and the conflict in the power dynamic sector. What I think is that we need to train and especially those employees which are, new to the organization, that they need to be assertive. Assertiveness training is very essential for those people who need to take care of themselves as new employees, because, as new employees, you'll be very energetic and you'll be really looking out for opportunities to, get yourself in. And oftentimes that will lead to burnout, and you will not know that you are burning out, and that will lead to mental health issues. So the most important thing in this particular domain, if we talk about it in the perspective of one employee, and that employee who is actually going through this problem and this conflict, I think that assertiveness and being self-sufficient and being, vocal about the issues is really important. And besides that, that person should be a good problem solver and a flexible enough so that to be a good subordinate, and to voice out his or her opinions as well, because the balance is really necessary. But assertiveness is really necessary, because especially when it comes to new employees, because new employees would, barge in into any opportunity that will have, and most essentially that will lead to burnout.
And I'll jump in just
Yeah.
a little bit too. I think those are great points. And I think the idea of assertiveness is something that is certainly important and needs to be handled carefully, because if somebody is in a workplace and they're lower on the hierarchy, that may be very scary for them. They may risk losing employment. They may risk, the quality of their work life. I think one of the important things is for the workplace as a whole to respect the idea of conflict resolution and the idea of having people from different places in the hierarchy being able to speak their minds and come to some place of understanding around that. To put all of the onus on the individual that's lower in the hierarchy to come forward, I think can be too threatening sometimes. And I think that maybe the hierarchy above needs to take some responsibility for creating an atmosphere that allows that to be more possible.
I did want to make two comments. One is for participants, remember that your mics are off. So if you do have a question or comment, make sure you put it into the question and answer. I also wanted to, I needed to put on my 2 cents here, because what I find is, particularly with faculty, in universities, we don't get trained as supervisors on how to handle conflictual situations. When I started, I supervised 1 person, and then I supervised 2, and then I supervised 8. So all along you learn. Often faculty, at least in the US, go into faculty because they love their subject. Then all of a sudden they're supervising the department head. They've had no training. And often in conflictual situations, it may be 1 person who's causing the problem, who's toxic for everybody in the department. And yet the person who's supposed to solve the problem hasn't had the training to know how to deal with it, which puts them in a terrible situation. They are being blamed for not fixing the situation, but they don't know how. So I also think that the more that universities can offer training as people get increased responsibilities, whether it's a conflict between 2 people and it needs mediation, or whether it's really dealing with a difficult employee, being able to have some skills that you feel confident falling back on can be very helpful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Kari, because if I share my personal experience, when I joined first time, so I went through a very extensive training of life skills training, or self-growth training, where I learned about effective communication skills, conflict management, how to be open in communication, how to give feedback to others. And this is where I learned that, okay, if you're having a problem, you have to talk to that person, because usually we don't communicate, we don't talk, and we just keep it to ourselves, and then the issues keep on, the issue is never resolved. So it's very important that we discuss it and we talk and we communicate in an effective way. Yeah. So we go to our next question. So next question is how to let the higher administration know that mental health of the staff is really important, because no one ever pay attention to the mental status of the employees. And then another question is just linked to it, that when you talk about mental health, usually colleagues think in a negative way. So how can we deal with that stigma?
I would like to respond. Should I?
Yeah, sure, Noureen.
As far as if we look into my suggestion portion, I mentioned that Higher Education Commission only do this to make it mandatory in every higher education institution to ensure and to adopt the concept of mental health, and it's endorse the importance of mental health in the universities. It can only happen once they will conduct that study that I was talking about. See, we can talk on too much on mental health issues. Once the Higher Education Commission will say it's mandatory for every higher education institution to talk about or to at least celebrate the Mental World Health Day, or to at least deal the students with their mental health issues with this kind of support, and this should be mandatory in the university. So I think it will be easily for every university to adopt and to work on that. The second part was about the person who is toxic.
When they talk about mental health, the colleagues think negative about you, but
Yes,
there is stigma related. It's about the stigma related to it.
Because, my dear, it is very obvious, as I mentioned in my presentation as well, that everybody has their own baggages, or the baggage of their own assumptions of gender restrictions. They have their own gender, because a faculty member is coming from the same society, the staff member is coming from the same society. Why we are tackling or thinking that they are very coming from a different planet, and we are supposed to be very nice, and they should be very well in their performances. We all are human beings. First of all, we all need to understand and admit that we all are human beings. We can make mistakes, and we should give the people who is creating negativity that space as well. And if you are well aware of about the mental health, you have the life skills. Like, I have received so many sessions on conflict resolution. So there are some faculty members I observed that who is creating a negative impact on students. So I slowly and gradually started making some, informal conversations with that faculty member. So there was a huge background of that person, why she was so negative, or why she's supposed to create negativity in the institution, because there are so many personal issues in her life. So with the passage of time, when we engaged her in the counseling things, she started reacting in a very positive manner. So we all are human beings. We should think that they also need this counseling. So maybe you can help them, rather than thinking or isolating them that there are few people who are toxic, so we should not deal or talk with them, and we are very perfect. No, it will never work. We should work together. We should try to engage these people as much as we can, because in society everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own problems, and you don't know what is the background of Noureen, how she's suffering with which problems. So this is
Thank you, Noureen. If we can have, if anyone other speaker want to say something,
I think that the more we talk about mental health, the lesser it is, because it's really pertinent that we should be talking about mental health so much, and especially when it comes to higher education institutions, because not everyone is understanding this whole concept of mental health in just like that. So a lot of times we would have to put a lot of effort to aware people, and I think the more we talk about, the lesser it is. And the second thing is that if we are, we are concerned about our privacy, that if we would talk about our mental health issues to somebody else, they would think, they would think that, we have gone, we are not really in our senses. I think that it's not really necessary to talk about your mental health to anybody that is around you. I think that this is something that you should give yourself a privilege, that you should be sharing this information with only those that you trust and only those that you actually have a good connection with. And it's better that you talk to a mental health professional about your mental health issues. So it's not that you should be talking about your mental health issues to anybody else. That's your privacy, and that's your right to privacy, that you should not be sharing that with others, but only with those people who are actually connected with you. Yes, we should be talking about mental health as in general with everybody, so that
awareness is really important.
Yeah, we get to have this atmosphere where we are comfortable enough to talk about
Yeah.
mental health. And then I think I believe that I wish that the day is not far that we could actually talk about mental health and not
So
get
it's the
judged.
time that we
ourselves.
need to break that stigma and talk about it, because it's really important. Yeah, sure.
To make the distinction between privacy and shame. You know, that it's okay to have things that are private. That does not imply that they're shameful.
Okay. So
let me jump in. We've got time for one more question.
sure.
I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
this was a good one. We all know universities at different times and areas go through trauma that everyone experiences. And one of the questions was, how do you restore mental health when all university stakeholders have experienced PTSD? On our university campuses, we've had shootings. Sometimes there's earthquakes. I know there's floods, there's terrorist acts, there's many things that can happen that affects the whole community. What's your thought? What are your thoughts about when it's experienced by the whole university?
Well, I'll jump in on this one. I know that for us at my university, we have what's called a postvention plan already in place, that when some event like that happens, whether it's a student or faculty suicide, or whether it's some student type event, we already know ahead of time who is going to make the decisions about the communication that goes out, who needs to go out to different areas in the community to address things face to face. How do we promote the resources that are available to people, so that students and faculty know where they can go to get support if they need it? Because to figure that out once something is happening is not the time to be able to make those decisions in the best possible.
Other thoughts?
I think where we come from and the resources that we have are not that much sufficient when it comes to the trauma-related response. But contrary to that, I think many universities and many educational institutions in Pakistan have experienced serious traumatic incidences involving terrorist attacks and suicides and so many issues. But we do lack a human resource for the response of these types of issues, because and through these types of platforms, I think that we are raising enough awareness. Or again, that's the question: what's really enough? But I think that we should be able to, and we should invest in trauma response in a much better way by investing more on this particular this particular training setup, because I don't think so that we do have a specified and a specialized unit which responds to trauma related incidents, because we are already lacking on psychologists and psychiatrists. So I think that it's really important that we start investing in this trauma related response primarily and specifically, rather than a generalized mental health approach.
And also, what we're talking about is when there's a general trauma coming from the outside, as opposed to an environment that just creates trauma. If it's the university itself that has an environment that's toxic to their employees, that's a bigger issue. I wanted to close by first asking, in the chat box, there is a very short feedback form. If you can take 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds to fill that out before leaving, that would be very helpful to us in knowing what we should address next. I want to thank Ms. Mujeeb for serving as the moderator, and Dr. Hight, Mr. Ahmed, and Ms. Lehri for their insights on a really critical topic. As we know, the future of any endeavor depends on having a physically and mentally healthy workforce. And many thanks to all of you for choosing to spend part of your evening with us. We hope it's been informative and that maybe you feel just a little bit more equipped to help promote mental health in the workforce, and to seek your own assistance if you're experiencing issues. And our contact information is on the screen. We are totally open. We know we answered a fraction of the questions. If there is anything you want to follow up with any of us, you can take a picture of this and send us an email and we'll try to help you out. So thank you again. Please fill out the feedback and good evening.
Thank you so much, everyone,
Thank you, Ayesha.
the presenters and
Thank you very much.
participants who attended it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Good evening.
Good evening.
and good morning.
Good morning.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Good day.
Okay. We will see you next time.
Okay.
Take care.